Hi, folks. This is a video for CCNY Music Theory Fundamentals 131. And this video begins our review of Chapter 5, which we're getting into scales and keys. And we've sort of done a little bit of groundwork on this because we've talked about whole steps and half steps, things like that. We can read pitches. All of that is the first step towards now talking about scales and keys. And you've heard people talk about key of C major, key of D minor, major scale, minor scale, pentatonic scale, things like that, probably. So now we'll start giving you the mechanics for what those type of terms mean and what they sound like. Okay, so let's I'll try to keep this review to two parts. I know they've been kind of long, but that's okay too if it ends up that way. So looking at the key concept here on page 98, first your book gives you this melody that has different pitches, and then it aggregates those pitches and puts them in order from this low E flat here to the high E flat. And all of these pitches along the way, so we have E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, and E flat. Your book has taken the different notes in this melody and put them in a specific order, right? Of the order of letters, starting with an E, in this case, E flat. So E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. But of course, some of these have accidentals, like E is not E, but E flat. A is A flat, B is B flat. And those are your three accidentals. And we'll talk about what that means. But the scale itself, as your definition is here, is an ordered collection of pitches. That's an important word there. It's an ordered collection. It's not just any collection, because this melody here is a collection of pitches, but it's not a specific order, right? First it goes up, then it does something different that goes down. It repeats sometimes a little bit, but not always the same way. So it doesn't have the same order that a scale does. So an ordered collection of pitches. When the primary pitches of a piece are written in ascending order without repetitions. So notice right here, nothing repeats except at the very end we have an E flat an octave higher. So it's an ordered collection that doesn't repeat. They form a scale. Each note in the scale is separated from the next note by a whole or half step. Very important. Important because it's going to make things easier, right? It's either a whole or a half step that separates one note from the next in either direction. Having trouble reading this. The first pitch is often repeated an octave higher at the end, right? So E flat here, and then E flat at the end. So to reiterate, the important elements to remember about what a scale is, and then we'll look at actual scales. It's an ordered collection, so it goes in order from whatever letter it starts. If it starts on E flat, then it'll be some form of E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and then E repeats. If it starts on C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C. And there can be accidentals in there depending on the scale, but every letter will only be seen or heard one time. Very, very important. Again, the first note might be played an octave higher or lower at the end, depending on which direction, but it's an ordered collection. Each note is separated by either a whole or a half step. Okay, great. So let's look at major scales. we're really only going to be talking about two, maybe three scales: the major scale, the minor scale, and I'm not sure if we'll get to the pentatonic scale, which may sound weird, but it's actually penta means five, so it's fewer notes than major or minor. But we're going to focus on the major scale for the next couple of weeks. And as I just said, there's a pattern, an ordered pattern of every note is separated by a whole or a half step. So for a major scale, the pattern looks like this: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That's an ascending, right? Going up, an ascending major scale. If you start the scale from the top and then descend, go down, then the pattern is reversed, right? See, half. If we just looked at this pattern and go backwards, right? So the best thing to do right away is to memorize this pattern. And it's really easy because there's different ways people remember it, but the easiest way, and your book says this somewhere, is to remember whole, whole, half. So check it out. There's whole, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole, half, right? However you want to remember it. And look, whole, whole, half at the end. So there's a whole, whole, half at the beginning, and there's a whole, whole, half at the end, and in the middle is a whole. So whole, half, same thing, and then, but they're separated by a W, a whole step. All right, again, whole, half, W in the middle. That's the pattern for a major scale, okay? Now, when you're going to see this term diatonic scale, make sure you get an idea of what that is. Basically, it means that all the letter names are used, right? And so if we look at, say, let's look at a C major scale. Here we go. Sorry. If we have a C major scale, what's our pattern? Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So we start with C, whole step. Remember a whole step, right? So whole, that's one whole step. Then we need another one, whole, and then half. Okay, again, whole step, half step. That's our first section. And then what separates in the middle? Another whole step. So we have our whole step. Then what do? Whole, whole, half. Whole, whole, half. And that's the C that started it, right? So it's all white keys, which you know already. Now we have to spell it C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. We wouldn't say that it goes, let's clear this, C, D, E, E sharp, G, right? Because if we did that, then we're missing an F, right? Even though this is, if we call it an E sharp, it's enharmonically equivalent to an F. But when we're writing notation, when we're talking about music theory, anything that's diatonic gets, I wonder if you can even see this, me doing all this. I hope so. When it's diatonic, it, in case you can't, here's what I'm doing here. Whole, whole, and here's our half step, E to F. We can't call this an E sharp, right? We need all 7 letter names to be accounted for in this. Okay, hopefully the last couple minutes on the keyboard you saw. If not, I'm sorry, but it should at least work going forward. All right, let's go back to your book here. So half steps are written with 2 different letter names, as it says here. And they're called diatonic half steps, okay? So all of this should be fairly easy to digest. Let's move on to the next page here. So, oh, and by the way, diatonic half steps are distinct. This is what I was just talking about. Understand that a diatonic half step is different than what we will call a chromatic half step. And look at our piano again. So if I call this E, F, that's a diatonic half step because it changes letter names. If I call it E, E sharp, that's a chromatic half step because it has the same letter name. Or if I say F flat, F natural, that's a chromatic half step, same letter. So diatonic just really means that it changes letter names, okay? That's all. Now for scale degree numbers, this is an important and kind of a relatively modern way of thinking about scales. As in numbers as opposed to in syllables. Now your book uses syllables too, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, but in the music pedagogy and world, we've kind of taken to adopting scale degree numbers instead of syllables for a variety of reasons. But every pitch of the major scale, as it says here, is a scale degree. Can you close the door? Sorry, folks. Each pitch of the major scale is a scale degree or a scale step. The beginning or tonic scale degree, right, is important in scales and musical works based on them as a home base to which other key pitches gravitate. So the tonic or scale degree 1 is the most important pitch in a piece of music. If for no other reason, it tells you what key you're in, what the home pitch is. So think about how if I, that gravitation that it's talking about, that home base, all music is really kind of this, ultimately this swirling around, going closer to and farther away from the home pitch until it finally gets there. And then you feel this resolution. Think of, really any song, or the land of the free and the home of the brave, right? So when I stop, when I don't sing that last pitch, it feels incomplete. You feel this tug. You need, and the home of the brave. So that last note I sang is pitch 1. It's also called the tonic, and you'll need to know these names too. But that scale degree 1 is what tells us what we call these scales. So here's your scale degree numbers. If we take a C major scale, right? This is C major. 1, 2, or here, let's hear this sing it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And notice our whole and half steps, right? C to D, whole step, D to E, whole step, E to F, half step, whole, half. Then what comes in the middle? Whole step. Whole, half, whole. And then what do? Whole, G to A, whole, A to B, half, B to C. And remember, they're diatonic half steps, diatonic steps in general. We can't have B to B sharp, right? It has to be diatonic. It has to change letter names. Now, when we have, so that's C major, but the numbers change with the key. So a C major scale is a pattern of whole, half, whole, half, beginning and ending on C, ascending. Remember, going backwards, it's the reverse, right? Half, whole, half, whole. But you just do, if you remember it the way up, you can know the way down. But if we change the tonic, if we change the home base of our music, right? Here's let me remind you, C major. If I say I want the same major scale, I want a major scale, because remember, a major scale is just the pattern, the pattern of whole and half steps. But I would start it in a different place. Now I'm going to start it on F, right? I'm starting it on F. So it's going to be, notice this is higher than the C. It's the same pattern, but higher. The pitches are very similar to C major. What's the big difference? It's this note. C major has a B natural. See this? B natural. F major, when we do our pattern of whole and half steps, has a B flat. All right. F to G is a whole step. Remember, whole step, whole, half, whole, half. Whole, F to G, whole, G to A. Now we need a half step. A half step from up from A is not B, but it's B flat. Let's look, I'll just show you on the keyboard. F to, this is our F, right? F to G, whole step. Now we need another whole step, G to A. Now we need a half step, B flat. But remember, it has to be a diatonic half step. The letter name has to change. And what I mean by that, again, is that this cannot be A sharp. We can't call it A sharp. We have to call it B flat. So again, starting on F is our scale degree 1, our tonic, whole step, F to G, whole step, G to A, half step, G to B flat. What comes in the middle? Whole step. Now we need another whole half. So we go C to D, whole step, D to E, whole step, and then our half step, E to F. Not E to E sharp, E to F. And that's our F major scale. Okay. So then it gives you, Twinkle Twinkle with whole and half steps. You'll get the idea. What's cool about this example is it shows you with this one melody. So this is Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. That might not even be the right key. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. If I were to sing it with numbers, 1 1 5 5 6 6 5 4 4 3 3 2 2 1. And I don't, these syllables may be useful to you, but focus more on the numbers. Now, just as we took this C major scale and then built an F major scale, and I want to really drive home the fact that these two scales are identical in the pattern. The pattern is exactly the same between them. It's just that the pitches are different, right? Instead of starting on C, we start on F. Instead of the second note being D, the second note is G. But both of them are whole, half, whole, half. So if we want to take Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star that began in C major, or that's in C major, and we call it in C major because the 1 is C. But let's say I want to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in F major. Well, now I have to make F1. And instead of in C major, G is 5. See here? If Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star goes 1 1 5 5, instead of C C G G, I have to go F F C C, and so forth, right? This is what we call transposing a melody. And you don't need to worry too much about that, but that's what this practice is, of taking one melody or one scale and changing keys, um, taking the same patterns and changing where they start and end and everything in between is called transposing. So notice the numbers are exactly the same. Won't let me highlight that, but 1 1 5 5 6 6 5, 1 1 5 5 6 6 5, 4 4 3 3 2 2 1, 4 4 3 3 2 2 1. But these notes are from the F major scale. Here's our B flat. So twinkle, or is that right again? I already lost. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Da, 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 da. That's C major. 1 1 5 5 6 6 5, 4 4 3 3 2 2 1. Now F major. Twinkle. All right, so now I'll sing the same numbers. 1 1 5 5 6 6 5, 4 4 3 3 2 2 1. Oh, I forgot I could just play this. Here it is in C major.
1 1 5 5 6 6 5, 4 4 3 3 2 2 1.
And F major.
1 1 5 5 6 6 5, 4 4 3 3 2 2 1.
And then, okay. Yeah. And then it talks about the solfege here, and read through that, get an idea of what it's doing there, but I won't ever refer to those sort of things. Now, these you do need to know, these fancy names for scale degrees. So there's 7 scale degrees, right? You should highlight this. One is called tonic, as we already mentioned, and then just go through these, make sure you know them. It's fairly, the most important ones are the ones that you'll hear me use the most, or hear other musicians or music theorists, professors, things like that. Tonic, subdominant, and dominant. Okay, and actually leading tone. Those are the most sort of structurally important pitches in a scale, and also in harmony. Supertonic is 2. Super means above, so 2 is above 1, and the home of 2 1 2 1. Right? Super is above the tonic. Supertonic, above tonic. Mediant is the 3. Again, subdominant is below the dominant. Sub means, where super means above, sub means below. Subdominant, and then 5 is dominant. Submediant, it's 3 scale steps below the tonic. If any of these sort of explanations help you, then go for it. I find it's easiest just to kind of memorize these, make a couple flashcards, and you'll be fine. Leading tone is another, really, that's just as important as the dominant or the subdominant. And that's easy to remember because it leads tonic, leads to tonic, leading tone, leading to tonic. Because 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1. Right? It kind of feels just as empty or needing resolution as the supertonic as 1. And the home of the brave, right? Okay. And then take a look at this stuff too, going forward. And I think next we'll just go ahead and, well, why don't we just do this now? You'll practice all this, and we talked about this a little bit when we're writing. All major scales share the same pattern of whole and half steps: whole, half, whole, half. This is kind of the pattern I talked about using: whole, half, then there's a whole step, whole, half. To write any major scale, follow the steps shown here. You can use this method if you find it helpful. I've had plenty of students that do, where they write in all the letter names first. So let's say I say write a D major scale. That's what it asks you to do here. Then you start. The easiest step is to write D. You know it's going to start and end with D. Then your book says to add the remaining notes, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Then write the interval pattern underneath it, whole, half, whole, half. And then add the accidentals when you need them. I kind of find that this is a couple steps too long for some students. Now, if this works for you, there is absolutely no problem with it at all. I'll just tell you what always worked for me, which is just to write to just go with the pattern. So I'd write D, then I'd write the pattern right underneath it. I'll just scroll on my page, whole, half, whole, half, and then I will build the scale. So I'll just go to my keyboard here. There's my D. So D, whole step, E. I wish I could, like write. I wish this little keyboard had a whiteboard, but remember, whole, half, whole, half. So we have a whole step. Now we need another whole step. So it can't be this, right? This is a no-no, that F natural. Remember, it all has to be diatonic. We need to change letter names every step of the way. So D, whole step, E. A whole step is this, and we have to call it what? F sharp. We can't call it G flat because we haven't had an F yet. We've had a D, we've had an E, then we need some sort of F. And because it's a whole step, because it's this black key, then it's F sharp, right? So whole, now we need a half step that is some sort of G, half, G. Then what happens in the middle? Whole step. So again, whole, half, then we get a whole. Now we need another whole, half. What's a whole step above A? B. What's a whole step above B? It has to be some C, right? But can it be this one? No, right? It can't. That's a half step. So the whole step is C sharp, cannot be D flat. And then our final half gives us our D. So if I clear this again, and so you can hear it. So that's our D. Whole, half, whole, and again, whole, half. Our D major scale. Okay, and your book shows what it looks like on notation, right? On staff notation. Whole, D to E, whole, E to F sharp, half, F sharp to G, whole, then our whole half again. So G to A, then whole half. A to B, whole, B to C sharp, whole, C sharp to D, half. And the key concept here is that any major scale you write should include 8 pitches, all 7 letters plus the tonic repeated at the end, right? So it's 7 different letters with the first and the last has a repetition of the letter because D and D. So all 7 letters need to be used plus the tonic twice, and the accidental should be either all sharps or all flats, not a mixture. So that's sometimes can be a problem, but you will never have a major scale that has sharps and flats. If you find yourself writing a scale that has sharps and flats, it's wrong, okay? A major scale. There's a world where those two combine, but we're not there yet. Okay, I feel like that It's plenty. I said this would try to be short, and it hasn't been at all, but I feel this stuff really needs explanation. And go through some of these, try it. I really think these can be helpful to do, to practice before you do these workbooks. And let me know if you have any questions, as always, and I will speak to you all soon. Take care. Bye.